While the country was watching football, going to church, relaxing, the Suns hosted a Sunday afternoon game and destroyed the New York Knicks. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, we'll break down how the Suns pulled away in the second half and why Payne continues to dominate. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons and a writer at Suns.com and Dime Magazine. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Monday. I hope some of you have the week off of work. I know some don't. I don't. So happy Monday. Let's make it through these 3 days, 5 days, whatever it is for you. Starting with a big Suns win here on Sunday afternoon. You can follow along wherever you find your podcast. We are free. We are everywhere. The best way to keep us everywhere is to subscribe. So hit follow, hit subscribe, whether you're on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, whatever it might be, will be in your feed every single Monday through Friday as long as you hit that button. If you are on YouTube, go ahead and hit the bell down below. Get a notification when new shows go live, and drop a comment in the YouTube channel down below with your thoughts on today's game. You can also follow along on Twitter at LockedOnPHXSuns, where we have our 7 words or less game takes after every single game. We have the real Glenn at Goomba_81 saying easy money. We have Jimothy Thomas at Thomas Jimothy saying campaign balling out while Booker rests, so you can hang out on game days over on the Twitter as well. Let's dive in. 116 to 95, 21-point win. The New York Knicks are starting to look like they might break. They're 500 or so, but today was ugly on their end. And as always, we'll start with the moment of the game. It's either a run, it's a play, it's some sort of scuttle that happens, but today it was the beginning of the third quarter, specifically the 9-minute and 19-second mark. All right, Quentin Grimes hits a layup to tie the game. It's crazy to look at this and think the Suns actually were tied at one point in the second half, but they were 60-60. From that point until the Knicks called a timeout at the 6-minute mark, the Suns went on a 15-4 run. And once again, we talked about this in the bonus episode I did on Friday night about the Utah game. Once again, in this case, the run was driven by Devin Booker. But I want to get into some highlights of the run first of all. We had a series of defensive sort of hustle plays that Booker was able to initiate right away. So Booker gets a dunk off of a steal from Julius Randle. Randle dives on the ground, tries to get the ball away from Book, who's also going after it, gives it right to McHale. McHale throws it to Book for a dunk. You have a Torrey Craig 3 in rhythm off of a Booker assist. And then you have a transition play where I believe it was Julius Randle missed a layup. The Suns go the other way. They have numbers, but rather than even drive it in and take advantage of that, Booker gets a 3-point jumper, just pulls up in the middle of a transition situation and gets it from the right wing. And then to cap it off, Booker drives into the teeth of the defense, gets the Knicks defense, which was admittedly not hard to get them out of control in this game, but they are looking around, not keeping track of anybody. Ayton gets the ball right outside the restricted area, tosses up a little 5-foot sort of bunny, and that goes in. That's the play that eventually makes Tom Thibodeau call a timeout. So again, it was Booker, and more Booker in this run. He had, I believe, 5 points and 2 assists in this 3-minute span. And it was the deciding factor of the game because that 60-60 tie at about the 9-minute mark was really the only time the Suns were tested all that much. I know going into halftime it was only a 2-point game. I mean, I have notes on the first half. I don't think it was always pretty, but I think the Suns were in a good rhythm, felt like they were in control of the game, and then the Knicks come out, admittedly, with a crazed sort of energy at the beginning of the second half. You know, they look comfortable. I guess crazed is a little bit extreme, but, you know, RJ Barrett gets an open three, Isaiah Hartenstein gets an easy look, and then the Grimes layup that I mentioned. They kind of seized that moment, and so the Suns were able to turn it around. I think the other interesting thing about this moment in time here that really makes it important as well, similar to Friday's game, although obviously Booker did not have the tremendous overall night that he did against the Jazz in this home game against the Knicks. What he did was show up in the biggest spots. There were multiple candidates. I think I did 2 moments of the game in that bonus episode because the Suns kept pushing and it was such a back and forth night. In this one, it was especially impressive because Booker was not all that great in this game, especially in the first half. He was 2 of 7 from the field, I want to say, in the first half. Tonight, he didn't really have the free throw line going for him. He didn't really get a lot of assists or any of that. The ball was moving really well, but it wasn't him driving it all that much. And still, when the moment really called for it, he put this team on his back. He generated offense and hustle plays and all the little things that needed to add up to what ended up being a 15-4 run, and the Suns never looked back. The lead gets up to 20, obviously, as the final score indicates, and they really just pushed on the gas. Booker didn't even have to play at all in the fourth quarter, so he did himself a favor with it as well. Takeaway of the game, it's all about Cameron Payne. We'll talk about his incredible night, his consistent play overall this season. After one quick break. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by BetterHelp. And look, I don't think it's any shocker that we all went into the past couple of years in one place, and we went into where we are now in a much different place. Today's show, as I said, sponsored by BetterHelp. Unfortunately, life doesn't come with a user's manual. When it's not working for you, it's normal to feel stuck. Lord knows I have felt stuck. I didn't have a consistent job at the beginning of all of this in the past few years. Then I got one. Then you have those hesitancies, the FOMO. Is it all going well? Then there's life on top of work. It's not easy. So whether you have dealt with something specific of a change in your life or just the general everyday ups and downs, BetterHelp can help. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists, available 100% online. Plus, it is affordable. It's not going to break the bank. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with your therapist, and if things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It literally could not be simpler or more efficient. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. So learn more and save 10% off your first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Cameron Payne is the man of the night easily. 21 points, 7 of 14 from the field, 2 of 5 from 3, even got to the free throw line 5 times, 7 rebounds, 9 assists, and just 2 turnovers. He was a plus 15 in the box score in his 32 minutes. I easily could have picked, honestly, another moment to highlight Cam Payne, but I do think that third quarter stretch was what solidified the game. But I want to key into a specific moment as well when it comes to Payne. And then I want to, give you a little bit of insight into what Payne said and what Monty said post-game. But this guy is putting on as good of a Chris Paul impression in late game moments as I think anyone could have expected. All right? And Monty pointed to a specific moment where the lead got to 15. The lead got cut to 15 early in the fourth quarter when the Knicks, I'm not going to overstate what the Knicks were doing. I would say mostly it was the Suns not making shots that allowed the Knicks to cut back into it. And then what happens? But Payne checks in at exactly the time when the lead gets cut. Monty said Book looked over to him as the coach and said, kind of gave him like a eyebrow raise. Are we good? Is this all right? Do I need to come back in? And instead of Monty putting Book back in, what he did is he put Payne back in. And Payne steadied the ship. Just did exactly what was necessary. He made a little leaner along the baseline. He got a rebound. He got an assist to Damian Lee cross court. An incredible skip pass to the right corner where Payne obviously left-handed. It helps. Then Payne made his own three. And that was the moment where the Knicks call a timeout. The lead goes to 26. And that's the already infamous video of Payne doing the finger gun thing and bobbing his head back and forth, and then Devin Booker doing it back. And I'm sure Book was doing it in part to celebrate Payne's big play, but I'm sure it was somewhat of a thank you, Cam. I don't have to come back into this game, right? And so that is, yes, another moment of the game, pardon me, but it is also just so indicative of the job that Payne is doing this season I don't even necessarily, in terms of the efficiency in those moments, I think he's doing a Paul impression. But frankly, if we just want to be honest about the production overall, Payne is playing better than Chris Paul since he took over as starter, right? I mean, no one's ever going to, in 6 games, try to make the case that, okay, Payne's better than a Hall of Famer. I'm not doing that. Some of you in my mentions on Twitter are doing that, but I'll let you have your opinion. I'm not quite there yet, but NBA Central on Twitter had the numbers overall. So the past 6 games, Payne is averaging 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists on 46% shooting from the field, 46% shooting from 3, and 90% shooting from the free throw line. I want to point your attention toward another number, which is after tonight's game where Payne had 9 assists and just 2 turnovers. He is at 63 assists and 29 turnovers this season, which is extending his assist to turnover past 2-to-1 in terms of the ratio. And another number here is his box plus minus, which is just about at 0. And that's not amazing, but it's much more tilting in the offensive direction than it was last season. And his overall, I just feel his impact is better. And I think, to me, the defensive stats can be a little bit hit or miss when you look at them on the whole. Plus, those numbers are looking at his whole season. We know he's been a lot better recently. The offense coming around is one of the single most important turnarounds for the Suns season from last year to this year, okay? We don't know what the Jay Crowder trade will bring. We don't know if there's other moves on the horizon. We don't even, let's say, know what, Dwayne Washington will become, or if Landry Shamet can get this concussion situation figured out. But despite all of that uncertainty, the Suns can credibly, confidently say Payne is much, much, much better than he was last season in terms of that efficiency, that poise, that confidence in big moments that I just highlighted, but also in terms of just overall production. I think it's fair to say this is one of the best stretches of his career ever, because last year, the game when Cam Johnson, also against the Knicks, Cam Johnson hits that game winner. There's the Friday night ESPN game, if you guys remember this, where I believe Damian Lillard, Anthony Simons, Devin Booker, and Chris Paul are all out. Kind of like the Blazers game that just happened a couple weeks ago. It was on Friday night. Payne played an incredible performance in that game. There were some moments, right, where COVID or injuries were affecting the Suns and Payne stepped up last year. But I don't remember another stretch where he was this consistent, playing this many minutes, being put into so many different types of game situations, and the production, the patience, and the efficiency were all going at full strength, at full confidence. It's massive. It's massive to pull out wins like this. It's massive for the overall trajectory of this team. We knew going in this whole campaign, what he does was the biggest need that the Suns had. You probably would say that's still true. I need to see it for more than 6 games, and I need to see it for more than just regular season games to go fully to telling you. It would be a lie for me to tell you now that I think that hole is plugged. The shot creator, the spark plug as an offensive engine, we're not there yet. But he has done a heck of a lot to satisfy what I think the Suns are looking for. To where at the very least now, let's say Jay Crowder were to get traded. The Hawks have now come up again. Let's say the Bogdanovich trade. All right. He hasn't played this year. There's health concerns. I don't know if that's actually on the table, but let's say it is. Let's say Bogdanovich gets added to this team, or anyone else. Pick your favorite. Eric Gordon, we've talked about him a lot too. Another scoring creator comes onto this Suns team. At the very least, that player is no longer replacing Payne in the pecking order or providing a cushion because of Payne's limitations. All that still exists. You're not going to hear me, once again, lie to you and tell you that there's no more question. But it's what can we add? If I'm James Jones, it's what can I do to balance out Payne? What can I do to complement Payne? Because he's not the question mark that he was last year anymore. We might only be 6 games into his stretch as a starter, but we are 13 games into the season for him, 16 games overall into this season, almost a quarter of the way through, and he has been a breath of fresh air. He is a much better player right now than he was last year. And tonight was honestly just the latest proof of what he's been showing since tip-off of the Mavericks game, which if you forgot, he closed over Chris Paul. This is not new, but it was very big tonight. A couple go-to nightly post-game segments we're going to close out with, including a very surprising candidate for the Pigeon of the game. First, today's show, guys, brought to you by PrizePicks. Look, I know, daily fantasy can be a grind. It can be pretty crappy and difficult. But what PrizePicks did is they took the whole model, they turned it on its head, and they made it fun. All right? You pick the more or less than PrizePicks' player projections, and that's how you set your lineup. All right? 2 to 6 players, and if they will score more or less than their PrizePicks projection, and you can win up to 25 times your money on any entry. But I said score, it's not just points. They can go more on rebounds, more on assists, more on, let's say, fantasy points. You don't even have to do the box score stats. You can go fantasy points. You're not competing against other people. It's just you versus those PrizePicks projections. They offer projections on not just basketball as well. NFL, MLB, golf, college football. They even have cricket, disc golf, European basketball, esports, NASCAR, anything you can dream up. You can put a prediction down in your lineup and make money. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less, and PrizePicks offers safe and fast withdrawals. So download the PrizePicks app today or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play this revolutionary daily fantasy sports game. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. So if you deposit $100, PrizePicks puts $100 right back into your pocket. $50 in, PrizePicks gives you $50 out. Don't forget to enter promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, daily fantasy made easy. All right, so we do the Pigeon of the game here on our post-game recap shows. I have an interesting one for you guys. there was a clip going around of Julius Randle on one play. Believe it was in transition. I might even be wrong about that. Devin Booker handles the ball, gets it to Mikal Bridges in the right corner for a wide open three. Whose man was that? Oh, it was Julius Randle's man. Then Mikal front rims that three. Deandre Ayton collects the rebound, puts it back up, puts it, I think, maybe up one more time. Who's standing between Deandre Ayton and the basket? It's Julius Randle. There's a weather vane for this Knicks team that can help you know what the status is of the locker room, of the roster, the vibes in the texture of the team. The weather vane is Julius Randle's on-court attitude, all right? You can tell this team's falling apart a little bit because Randle is supposed to be their leader and their best player, and he's playing like there's nothing to play for when they're in the middle of the standings in the East, and they should be. All that to say, Julius Randle, with how bad even that play and some other ones looked, Julius Randle's not the pigeon of the game. Tom Thibodeau is the pigeon of the game in this 116-95 loss. And a lot of what I just said is why. Not the Randle sulking and not rotating. Not to say that's excusable, but it wasn't just Randle is the problem. All right? I have here a note. It may have been a tweet. The tweet was, I think I called the Knicks defense atrocious. And I'm not normally like, look, far be it from me to be the guy always criticizing coaching and things like that. Like, if I could coach the Knicks better, then I'd have a much firmer place to stand on. But I can't coach the Knicks. The biggest issue to me is they were ball watching. There was no discipline. They were not preventing perimeter driving by Payne, by Booker, by whoever. It just didn't seem like they had any interest in competing on that end. There's one play that Mike Vigil of the Timeline podcast tweeted out. It was supposed to be a highlight of the Suns, which I think it is. I think it's still a pretty solid showing by the Suns to be able to move the ball, get a good shot. But there's a moment in this possession where Bismack Biyombo gets the ball at the top of the key, rotates it over to Josh Okogie. Josh Okogie ends up running like a pick and roll with Bismack Biyombo. Now, we know Josh Okogie is not much of an offensive threat. He's definitely not going to pull up from three in that situation. He's not even very likely to get downhill. He just doesn't have the skill to his offensive game to be much of a threat. But what do the Knicks do? They turn around and they treat him like he is, I don't know. I compared it to Steph Curry and Draymond Green in a pick and roll. And so Bismack sets the screen. Jericho Sims, who's like the third center on the Knicks, jumps out, hedges on the pick and roll. So he steps out to basically cut off Okogie's drive. This is something you see teams do to amazing creators, right? We've seen them do this to Devin Booker, to Chris Paul, not to Josh Okogie, but they do that anyway. So Bismack Biyombo then is able to get downhill, go roll toward the basket because now his man has jumped out on Josh Okogie. So Okogie makes the right play, gets the ball to Bismack Biyombo. Well, what happens then is RJ Barrett has to rotate out from the perimeter, and then the minute that happens, you see Mikal Bridges cut to the basket for a dunk. All right? So play-by-play of that awful set aside, the pigeon of the game was Tom Thibodeau because he did not have his team ready to compete. This team should be better at defense. First of all, it's what Thibodeau is great at, right? And second of all, like Chris Paul didn't play. Cam Johnson didn't play. The Suns scoring, it has been a grind at times. We all watched the fourth quarter against the Miami Heat, right? I know that's like another level of defensive team even compared to the Knicks, but we have seen this Suns offense grind down when it's not going well, when teams can sell out to stop Booker, when other guys aren't taking threes or providing that outlet or making the right pass. This offense can grind down. We know that can happen. The Knicks should be able to do it. They have RJ Barrett or Quentin Grimes, guys who theoretically could guard Booker. Booker did not have a very good first half. Randall, Hartenstein, they should be able to end possessions with rebounds, which they did not do. The Suns out-rebounded this team 60-39, which is craziness. And they didn't. They did not. So Tom Thibodeau is the pigeon of the game. The pigeon of the game is normally the guy who is being picked on. So it could be Randall, right? The Suns were picking on him. He was not giving effort, so it was very easy to do that. But the Suns were picking on the Knicks tonight. And Thibodeau is to blame. That'll wrap us up. Happy Monday. Happy short week again. We'll have shows for you all week. And maybe outside of Thursday or Friday, we will see. Tomorrow, I believe Aaron Edwards will be on. We have a game recap show of the Lakers game on Tuesday. So do not go anywhere. Hit subscribe, hit follow. Make sure you get Locked On Suns in your feed every single day. And in the meantime, go make Locked On Sports Today your second listen to catch up on everything going on around the whole world of sports, the football weekend, and much more in 20 minutes or less. That show is available wherever you get your podcasts, and I will talk to you all tomorrow.